Hey, what's up? I just wanted to come with a quick follow-up to something that I left out of the previous video, where I was talking about some of the dynamics of supply and demand as that impacts human outcomes for life, opportunities at life, such as with sex appeal, sex dynamics. I don't mean to say sex dynamics, but just what is sex appeal? Who is viable as a sexual agent when we're all just human beings? A human being is kind of actually generic in the first place. Like, some things will sometimes when you see the truth of something, it's kind of like it takes away some of the effect of it. Like, there's this YouTuber named Greg Adams, and he advocates for men, like for like a lot of like men's he advocates for men like to act in their best interest, because there's a lot of people would appreciate that in modern Western society, men in the past, maybe more so, have been exactly encouraged to disavow their best interest and do what's in the best interest of the group. Like some would say, like in the best interest of women, but really the best interest of the group. That's probably not unique to the United States. All people have probably had something similar about sacrifice for the group, but it really, a lot of times men can get the short end of the stick and be like sacrificial animals, whether that be like emotionally or like with your the way you spend your time, and all the way up to work, but also how you're compensated for that, what you own from that, and how you can be disenfranchised and dispossessed of that, of your vitality and your potential and your time, in many iteration societies, but especially like the Western society in the late 19th and early the late 20th and early 21st century. So Greg Adams talks about that, but he has this thing on his video where he'll do like this little, it's like a generic body form of like a elderly, of a mature woman, like a woman past her prime. And it's like this it's just like a human body, like what a human body will look like once a female has like passed her prime. And like, if you look at a female body, like according to Arthur Avalon, is that this life, human, all things, but especially a human being, is at its pristine best when it's young. Like, if you just look at like pictures of yourself when you were young, you're almost like immaculate. How you are, how balanced you are, how much you are in harmony with this existence. You can see that as a young person. As a mature person, it's not different than that. You're still equally balanced and beautiful, but it's a different thing. Like, according to Osho, is like a child is beautiful because they're innocent, but they're naive in their innocence, and they're naive that whole time. And a seasoned person, like a veteran, a mature, a wizened man or woman, they're also innocent like a child, but it's a mature innocence because they were once innocent. They made mistakes, failures, maybe atrocities, egregious things, but then they learn from that, and they chose, because you actually can't learn and do better until you choose better. You can present it with the lesson with yourself, which is the lesson, your experience, which is the lesson, but you actually don't improve or grow until you choose better. So the lesson, it just helps you, and it gives you the standpoint to choose better, but it's still your option to choose better. But you can get, I heard some people today, like sometimes like people you wouldn't think, like people that are from a different walk of life, that you wouldn't think about certain things. If you get around people with an instrument, they can forget themselves around you, and they can get loose at the lips when they see you with an instrument. So people say different things around me when I have an instrument, but some people are like, yeah, that guy's a dirty old man, and something like that. That they were like young people. I don't know what the hell they were talking about, but they were talking about somebody as a dirty old man. And sometimes you'll hear that thing, dirty old man, or you'll get a man who's like appreciated as a sage, or very wise and gentle and kind. That's an example of how they may have had the similar experiences, but they're still choosing different, even at an older stage in life. So just because we're older doesn't mean that we're anything different, and you can still be a dirty old man or a wise man. But if you, according to Osho's one of the wisest people I've listened to. He would probably try to be both, because he called himself a spiritual playboy once. But so I meant to say is that there's beauty at any development of at any stage of life, but it's different. But so like with a human being, like a female, if you look at there's like different, sometimes the older English, they have like, you don't think about certain like distinctions in life, in people. Some of the older generations, they're actually more clear about certain things, and they were neater and more direct in a lot of ways. This one guy on YouTube had a video of a woman talking from like she was born in the 1830s and recorded in the 1920s, and he was impressed by her speech. But she reminded me of a lot of people I grew up with, because I was probably alive. I met people in my life who were born in the late 1800s. They would have been older when I was a young boy in the 80s and 90s, but they were around. So I was familiar with that old school, and they were very, there are many things that have been lost with other generations. And one is that they could spell out the degrees of development differently than, like, they'd point out the difference between a boy, a lad, a bachelor, like a proper man, a mature man, something like that. But then for a lady, you would have like maybe you'd have like a baby, a toddler, a girl, an adolescent, a teenager, a maiden, a young woman, a woman, a mother, maybe a matron, a grandmother, a wizen, on like that, different distinctions of the development of a woman. But it's actually clear, like there was a woman who was a few years older than me, like maybe like 3 years older than me, but her brother was my exact peer in school, and we were both in sports, and we both excelled at sports. But he went to higher tiers of excelling, and he played like college basketball and out of state. And then he was influential. Basketball really became, it segued into life career opportunities for him. For most of us that have participated in sports, I would say that we've benefited in life differently by those lessons and some of those connections. But he took it all the way there as we were in sports. But then also beyond that, he went to some of the higher stratification and levels of success from talent, but also like applying himself. But he had I moved into his neighborhood at senior year of high school, and my family's been in proximity to him for a long time. But he had an older sister, and I saw her around like when I was just getting out of high school, and she would be involved in church. That's some of my motivation to becoming like a spiritual, like attend church when I was young, because I would, the book Proverbs, it really clicked for me, and that wisdom in Proverbs, a lot of it's really like timeless, like a living text, because truth is kind of timeless like that. Life is actually timeless, but if something's true, then it's true now, likely by and large. And it would talk about something like a man who finds a good woman finds a good thing, and it would describe what a woman is when she's inclined towards her heavenly Father, what that would mean for her, but also other men in the community, or a man in her life, what that actually means when you have a woman who's in alignment with the best, with her true potential, which is being in alignment with her heavenly Father. But just that's significant to a young person to actually, but that you would call that a maiden. She was a young unmarried woman. I think she did get married sooner. And then some of those words those would be like the more straightforward and simple ones. But then there's also things like widow, or spinster, or those would be some of the negative aspects. But that's still part of the aspects of what it is, the maturation of a human female. And then some of those are actual life modes and styles, even that of a widow or a spinster, because that's derogatory. But there's something of reality in the lifestyle of someone that would or wouldn't have a family. But all I meant to say is that for a maiden is very that'll move a person like that. My understanding of a woman is that whether anatomically male or female, a real woman in my mind is inspirational. I think that Osho might have said something like that, but that's my understanding of a woman, is that a woman inspires the best of men And then also awe. A woman inspires awe in women and men, but also brings out maybe brings out the worst in women and the best in men. That's a real woman. Brings out the worst in women and the best in men. But not to say that women don't also cooperate with great women, but women really are inspirational, but no less than a maiden would be to a young man or just any person, to actually be graced with the sight of a maiden in her right alignment with her heaven. I don't mean to say right as better or worse, but just in her true alignment with her heavenly Father and her purpose in this life, for better, that might be a better way to say, alignment with her purpose in this life, which part of that is being a woman, is it's profound like that. But if you were to just look at the body of a woman like that, in the prime of life, a maiden, and then you look at her like maybe in like middle age, there's not a big difference in those two bodies like that, but the difference it's like degrees, and those degrees are significant. So you would have like some people would say, I don't mean to be like I don't mean to be graphic with this as though anyone, as I'm saying something someone doesn't know, but you would have like, say you have like the breasts of a woman, like a young woman, like a maiden like that. It's gonna look different than a woman who's middle aged or beyond. Just the actual the breast like that. That's actually a distinction in degree, because there's not a big difference between the breast of a maiden and a middle-aged woman, but that difference, it actually does, because males by nature, males can assess the fertility of a woman. So if a man walks up to a group of women, a normal healthy man, I don't mean to say normal as that's a real thing, but just a healthy man that's attracted by women, walks up to a group of women, and the most attractive woman there, superficially, is gonna, his attention is gonna gravitate towards that. That's actually his attention gravitating to the most viable partner, but also potential parent. That's by nature like that. But that's some of our instincts. So we're a male to look at a maiden, the breast of a maiden, where it's appropriate, and the breast of a middle-aged woman, it's gonna affect him differently all the way to his loins, because on a deeper level, he can by that cue, by that distinction, that degree, he can appreciate that she's not as fertile or even viable as a parent by that point. That change would happen to the body. But it would be different looking at a maiden. That's a deeper thing at play, is assessing the fertility and the viability of a relationship and like a parenting bonding. But just that Greg Adams, he points out that in that he does like this little like 360 of a woman that's like past middle age in the body of that. And when you look at that, you can appreciate that a human body is not very different than another human body, but the differences are in distinctions, and it's profound with the distinctions. So one person would be highly attractive to another person may not be. The actual difference between the highly attractive one and the one that's less, it's not entirely profound on the face of it, but what it would take to have that distinction at play and also exist with that distinction at play over a lifetime, it actually does amount to a difference in perceived or maybe experienced quality of a person, if that according to another person's liking. But when you look at what Greg Adams shows in that video, is that there's not that much of a difference between a human being. And some people would say that, like some real ladies men, like people that have had a lot of experience with women, they would say that at a certain point, there's not that much difference between like any two partners. So if you've been with one of them, you've been with all of them. But then also part of that, but the exception proves the rule. So for males are interested in variety. That's part of what it means to be. That's part of the evolutionary development of a human being, is that a human being would have more viability in terms of progeny by diversifying the spreading of his heritage in his family by being with multiple partners. So part of attraction and appeal of a person that's a healthy male and enjoying their endowment as a healthy male is to be attracted to different people, but still there's not that much difference between people, but the differences are significant in like degree and like what would be attractive by a person. But all I meant to say is that there's not that much difference between anyone and anyone else, but some people really get on in life and they're attractive and they have experiences to go with that, and other people do not. But so what I wanted to say is that with this video is that there are a couple of things that I forgot to mention with the other video, and one is how so from that standpoint, there's human beings can be a little bit something of eugenicist in themselves, in that the means of discriminating, because human beings really do when you open your when you open your eyes to look, you're actually discriminating that whole time. You're finding patterns, you're recognizing patterns, you're being engaged by patterns, you're having suggestions based on patterns, but you're discriminating so much as you're awake. But no more so than in relationships. And a lot of relationships is very discriminating, but not just in terms of ethnicity and appearance, but it's way deeper than that. It's your lifestyle, your way of thinking, your way of being perceived by other people, and being perceived by other people. A lot of that plays into, and then also even some of your education and lack of education, and either of those can work to a strong suit or a detriment. Sometimes I think that when people get around you, if you seem more like you, it's like, for lack of a better word, ignorant, you might be more respected, because that suggests that you may be comfortable with violence, or you wouldn't second guess violence or consequences, because that something of that ignorance, it's like a reverse form of class, like a reverse form. I picked that up in a songwriting book by Paul Zalo, on songwriting by Paul Zalo. He collected interviews with a lot of different musicians, and this one musician, he was from like around the time of the flower movement, like the 1960s, and he was saying that he would be at these parties at these college campuses, and people they'd be speaking with like idiomatic expressions that don't make sense on the surface if you're not from a background, and you're not from a region or a dialect. But people, they'd be at a college, but then they'd be saying things like ain't, and like I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the word ain't, but just to say that they'd be using syntax and vernacular and grammar that wouldn't fit their actual decisions and lifestyle to place them at a college. That's a little bit out of sorts at a college. So what he was saying is that one is that, but you can also be, I think bespoke means eloquent. You can be bespoke by using words like ain't and any vernacular that you would come from, because eloquence, giftedness around communication is not limited by education or demographic or culture or background. It's a lot of who you are. That's a gift in itself. And sometimes nowhere is it stronger than with someone that may not have had access to education, just because where there's a lack, sometimes human beings will exactly overcome that and become strengthened by a deficit. But just for this sake of this example, he's saying that they weren't being entirely congruent to be speaking in a vernacular grammar that wouldn't fit their enrollment at a college. So he was saying that, but then they also leaned into it. So it's like a reverse form of snobbishness. It's that more, it's like looking down on using grammar, or like speaking clear English. And I don't mean to be arbitrary or chauvinist like that, but it's like a reverse form of snobbishness, where it's actually a distinction, and it's actually filtered for and appreciated by many people to actually speak less of grammar, but also suggest being less thoughtful, so as to be more comfortable being less thoughtful, even in things like violence. So what I want to say is that I think that part of the mechanism of filtering, that is segregating opportunities for sexual activity, but also life, it's actually danger fits into that, and so does trends. So if you were to look at human trends going way back, there's always been different trends that come on the scene. But when trends come on the scene, they kind of like, you would probably see a trend might be like a kingdom. So you would have like the king is at the head of the trend, the person that's actually winning with the trend. They're winning hand over fist. They're over winning. They're more winning than they know what to do with. But also power corrupts, and they can get addicted to that, the power of that. And it's enjoy that. That's what probably the greatest, one of the greatest sensations is power. But people can get stuck in that trend, because that trend, it has dynamics and limitations. But to win with it, like one trend that came on the scene was pink. So like back in like the year 2003, I think like 2004, exactly 2004. It started just before 2004, but it blew up 2004. You had this rapper named Cameron. I've been a hip hop head most of my life. So back then, like coming into high school, I became a freshman in high school in the year 2000. I had been big about, like, I grew up listening to hip hop. Then I kind of fell off with hip hop, and I got into alternative in middle school. But then, like in 7th grade, I was reggae, hip hop, gangster rap, all that, like growing up as a kid in basketball. But then I moved to the north, and then I got into skateboarding, because my best friend that shared a desk with me when I first got here, he was a skater, and we really, like, we clicked, him and I. And so he got me about like skating. And I also had friends in the Southwest that listened to alternative, like my Native American friend and his father, they listened to alternative. And I had some of that was real alternative live, like that was coming out of the 90s. I was experiencing it as it was being created, some of that great alternative with my friend's father, and like taking us outdoors, but listening to like long trips of alternative. But then I get to the north, and I'm bumping, now I'm listening to alternative like in 7th grade, and I'm a skater now, even though I had been big about basketball. But then that song Back That Ass Up came out by Juvenile on that 400 Degrees album and Cash Money. And I was like, damn, I got reconverted back to hip hop, and I never actually changed. I never looked back since then. Since 8th grade, I've been back on hip hop. But it had been Juvenile won me back over to hip hop like that, with that song Back That Ass Up. Dun dun do 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 do. Yeah, just that when that song comes on, you know what time it is anywhere you're at. Like, it don't matter who you're talking to at a party. You can be talking to like the person that you forgot. So you're at a party in middle school. Somehow you got invited to a party, and you're talking to like the most thoughtful person. You didn't know you guys actually had a crush on each other that whole time. You guys actually respected each other that whole time, and you hadn't been talking, and now you're meeting at this party, and you're clicking up in middle school. But then dun 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 do 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 do, you big fine girl wants you back that ass, you big fine. So that little conversation you had right there, it goes out the window, because you know what time it is when that song came on. That was like a classic that came over the whole country, like of probably the whole world too, in 8th grade, like the late 90s. But then I'd be bumping like my friends in New Mexico at about that time, like 8th grade, like that. I get back out there to see them, and we were bumping Big L like that. Most people back then, even today, most people don't know about Big L, but we were bumping Big L, and he ran with Cameron back then. So I was up on like Cameron. I was the old Cameron before a lot of people had heard of him. He had, like, my friend was a hip hop head, and he had this album of Cameron with, like, he had like overalls on, like a sledgehammer. That was like some real hip hop vibes. At that point, he hadn't been, I don't think he had landed as like mainstream or crossover, or like, so I'm not saying he's mainstream or crossover, but he did win those audiences later. But back then he was just straight hip hop, but he was also with that type of time as like Big L and stuff like that. And we were up on that. But then a couple years later, he had this song, he had a cut, he was underground famous in the 90s. Hip hoppers would know about Cameron in the 90s. Then in the early 2000s, he had some big cuts, and he won with that, like 2002 at that time. I was bumping Cameron at that time. But then like 2000, he came out with this, like, he had this video where he came out rocking pink. He came out rocking like pink bandana. Pink. He would have looked like he was banging something, but he was banging the color pink. He came out as banging the color pink, and that he took that took off, that he did that. And I actually think that by Cameron doing that, that changed some attitudes about what the struggle for gay people in the world, but also in America first, but then the world. I think that Cameron actually, he impacted the gay struggle, because damn it, I'm gonna wear pink. I'm gonna bang. That's what he said. He came out. He didn't. It was a statement. It was a fashion statement. He came out wearing pink, and he didn't have. And he's the type of person that he didn't have a problem with someone having a problem that he didn't have a problem wearing the color pink. That's what type of time he was on. But that actually was fly. That was fly as hell, because it's saying that you could wear what you want to wear. You could be who you want to be. But then at that point, everyone was wearing pink. At that, like 2004, I actually wasn't comfortable wearing pink because I wasn't comfortable with trends. I wasn't like, I was never about trends, and it took me a while. Like right now, I got pink in my I'm rocking pink with some of my braids. There's a little bit of lace in there, and I do the color. And so I'm rocking pink like that. Now I'm just getting around to rocking pink 20 years after the trend. But back then I wouldn't rock pink. You still had to be somewhat fly. You had to be stamped. You had to think that you were cool to wear pink, to look cool wearing pink. But I wasn't cool with looking cool because that's what the trend was. Because I never fit in with trends. Because I'm the type of person where if I ever did anything that wasn't congruent, I had my ass handed to me. I figured that out. I was young. I was like at a store in New Mexico when I was with my dad. And back then in the 90s, like the mid 90s, like a lot of us in New Mexico, like we do, like there'd be trends like of like wearing like really long belts. So like your belt, it looks like another leg, or like even like wearing pants backwards. Like that was a little bit from like crisscross. Like you had like crisscross totally crossed out. But some of these trends, they linger for a few years. So like the crisscross, like them playing with clothes like that, it played into some of like the 90s, some of the sagging pants, some of the gangster aesthetic that people tapped into, whether they had any business doing that. But then I'd be like in public, like just looking stupid, like with the long belt like that, or pants backwards or something stupid. And my dad checked me like right there in the store, like in front. There's like some pretty girls my age. My dad checked me about that in front of them, like, what are you wearing? He wasn't right or wrong for that, because he's never really been rocking with me, like doing anything like fly. Sometimes your actual family can be your main like opposition and people like throwing salt on you, but it's probably better that he would have checked me like that I wouldn't walk out and get checked harder for playing with style. Because there's rules to style in any human culture. Human cultures, according to Arthur Avalon, have always had rules about style, and if you're reckless with style, that you can have heinous outcomes from that. That's always been part of the human experience. But just because of my experiences, I couldn't do nothing that wasn't like I could even since my dad checked me like that. I was a kid when he checked me like that. I could never wear a backwards hat since then. I don't think I ever wear a backwards hat since I've been about like a kid like that, because the way my dad checked me like that is that like, what is this stupid thing on your head? That's how he would talk to me, like something like that. What is this stupid nonsense on your head right now? What kind of nonsense is this? But that's heavy-handed. That's not actually healthy for a child to have like a parent browbeating their taste and their confidence. But in American society, as violent as it is, that might not be the worst thing. But all I meant to say is Cameron, he came out with that pink like that, and that a lot of people were wearing pink, and I think that it was at that point it was cool to be you could be masculine and wear pink, or you could not be masculine and wear pink and still be fly. So I just think that Cameron, he did a lot with that fashion statement of breaking out pink like that. But he wouldn't have been the first one, because things come from somewhere. So I think you probably had like players and like, for lack of a better word, pimps back in the day that would have rocked pink just the same as him, with the same attitude, and hopped out just like him. So I'm not gonna say he's the first one to rock pink like a P would, but he was the first one to like he brought it back out for the first time, and it changed a lot with that. But I think that trends in general, like, so a trend that he would have been like one of the ones winning with that, like at the king of that trend. But then you get but for any kingdom, you have much more. You have like a little bit of like barons, esquires, nobility, like a little bit of nobility within the kingdom or the trend. But then you have lots and lots of serfs, and like probably fighting between the serfs and like the actual like the tenements that aren't winning with it. So I think that one of the things that actually mitigate that actually something that operates as a eugenics metric, because they say that, see, human beings, there's like a life force and a death force, and there are things that inspire life in the generation of human beings, the prospering of human beings, the health of human beings. But there are equally things that confound that, check that, and stifle that, and also interfere and or obstruct and delete human opportunities of living. And these are some, they say that there's some things like with the sun where there'll be like, there's some activities with the sun and they're associated with wars. Like when the sun does this thing, there are wars that will play out. That's how sophisticated influence is. Like the planetary influences, it can have a person doing things or have situations take place, germinate, that are very sophisticated. But that'd be an example of how there's some, you could actually even say that the sun may actually be inciting war sometimes. The sun may be in like, if you think about how much, I actually one time cursed the sun because I was just thinking about like how much wicked stuff has went on under the sun, like how many atrocities have went on under the sun that the sun didn't bat an eye at, or that went down under the watch of the sun. So I actually cursed the sun one time, because I felt that was bogus, that so much of wrong has went on under the sun, and we don't have vision without the sun and what the sun makes available. So somehow it's been cited by the sun but tolerated by the sun, that sometimes I just feel a way about that. But you could also say that maybe the sun actually inspires, encourages, and requires horrible experiences like combat and fighting, because some of this solar activity, it's associated, it can be directly correlated with the onset of wars, some of this activity. And then I think that some of your older people, generations of people like in the Americas, they'd actually sacrifice men, women, and children, and virgins. I was talking about maidens in this. That's a maiden might be another word for virgin. They would actually sacrifice that. That's probably as heinous as heinous is. They do that on behalf of the sun, different people. Now, I don't mean to say heinous because I'm not from that culture, any a culture that does that. And so I can't speak to what other people's practices were, and also that's out of context a different time. But it's been said that people have actually sacrificed up to and including men, women, and children on behalf of the sun. But then also the sun itself, it can be attributed as influencing, if not causing, human beings to fight and go to war and stuff like that. So there'd be an interest and incentive, even in something as sublime as the sun. And that's what I come to appreciate, is that life is exactly balanced like that. And so for wherever there's a light, there's a dark. So as much of brightness as we have in the sun, as much as the sun can make the day that beautiful, the things that are not beautiful in this life, they could also be impacted from the sun and exactly inspired by the sun the same way. So when I say the sun, I mean S-U-N, sun. But so there's exactly a buoyancy of life, that there's, for all that makes life possible, there's much that makes it impossible and is intelligent about making it impossible. And the only difference, I think, is the mercy that we show one another in ourselves, which are one another in ourselves. So I think that these trends, the trends and also danger are part of the darkness of life, the dark side of life. And that they also confound and stifle and limit and delete opportunities of sexual activity and living in life and health, happiness, and joy. I think the trends do, and also the danger does. Because if you think about it, like, so all I meant to say, there's been different trends. Like, there's been trends come on. For every trend that people are winning with, there's a lot of people that are dying with that same trend. They're dying for that trend or because of that trend, equally, probably more so. So I think that trends come in and they come and go. But what the function of trends actually is, it's something of actual birth control. It's a broader human, because we're connected the whole time. So individually, human beings will limit each other. We'll throw salt on each other. We will interfere with each other. We'll backbite. We'll sabotage. We'll gossip, slander, mock, ridicule, detest, despise one another. Any matter of mischief and obstruction, we will do that to one another, human beings, on an individual level, but we're connected that whole time. So as a group, there are broader motions that we do that also that impact and stifle human opportunities at living, but it fits into the broader picture and scheme of keeping life exactly balanced, light and dark, but also limiting supply and demand. You could say that this existence is not, you can say anything. We have like spiritual, we have religious freedom, separation of church and state, but if you interfere with money, with value, that may be what real blasphemy is. That may be something egregious. It's like you just simply you simply don't respect value. You look past that. That might be really this what I'm going to say is this existence itself may have an interest in value and also supply and demand, such as to make opportunities for life and death, but also equally as much death as much as life, and be interested in and intelligent about making opportunities for death as much as life. This existence may have an interest in that, is what I'm coming with. And so, and how I think that would be applied along trends and also danger, because if you think about it, how much of life is missed out on because of danger, but also how much of cool experiences are possible because of danger. So like you go to a lake, right? I've been spending more time at a lake because I've been having time on my hands. And you go to a lake during the day and it's something of life there, right? It's so healing. The grass is so beautiful. The water is so beautiful. Really almost like otherworldly is how beautiful a lake can be during the middle of the day. How much of life is there, the people coming by, this and that. But then it starts to get dark. Darkness settles on the lake. Night settles on the lake. And now it's dangerous, it's spooky, but actually it's really is deathful, because as much as that lake was alive during the day, it's something that much of death at night. And it's some that it changes the dynamics and the opportunities for living and dying at night like that, but also the opportunities for living and dying. So you get out to the lake at night and not that much change. It's the same damn place as it was during the day, or is it? Because nothing changed. It's the same trees, it's the same ground, it's the same water, just the light is different. But now people are behaving different, and also a lot of people aren't going to be at the lake now because there could be danger there at the lake. So I heard some people saying, like, I was walking out there at night and someone was like, they were on a date, they're like, yeah, back in the day when you couldn't just go to the lake at night. Like, you weren't cool just to go to the lake at night. Yeah, but somebody would have been at the lake at night, right? But everyone wasn't cool to go to the lake at night, but somebody was cool to go to the lake at night. So what I meant to say is that you get out to the lake at night, and now you got, so some people, you go to a lake at night, and the least likely people that you would expect to be out at night, to be comfortable being out at night, but also to be out at night, is exactly who you'll find at a lake at night. And they're enjoying being at a lake at night without all the people that would be afraid to be at a lake at night, and enjoying being at a lake at night with all the people that would not be afraid to be at a lake at night. So that's one thing, is that I think that danger, it supports sexual activity, but also limits sexual activity. So imagine that, I don't know, like, where, like, anyone that watches this video that's sexually active, I don't know where you're sexually active at, but I would imagine wherever you're sexually active at, or you're meeting people to then go somewhere and be sexually active with, there'd be danger there. So like for example, like, you got the nightlife, right? As an adult, I stayed the hell away from the nightlife. If I wasn't making money somewhere, I wouldn't be out I wouldn't be out using my face card at night. Now that might be for better or worse. I'm now in my late 30s and I'm healthy, and I'm free of I'm free of like substance abuse, and also like limitations to freedom because of like a record. But part of that was by staying out of vicinities and venues that I could anticipate without too much difficulty would be attended by or frequented by opportunities for getting mixed up in something that could compromise my freedom or my health. But all I meant to say is you go to the nightlife and you can appreciate there's some danger there, because one is like, yeah, there. So where are all the sexy people at night? They're on the scene, the night scene. Now it's digital, so the streets are digital now. The night scene is maybe digital now. So I don't know how that goes down, how the streets go down actually now with the digital space. But all I can imagine is that there'd be some danger there. So you're in a space around attractive people, healthy people, sexy people. Where you have sexy people, you also normally have drugs. Where you have drugs, you have thugs. I'm not the first one to say that where you have sex, you have drugs and then thugs. I can't remember where I picked that up, but that's the same like that. So where you have the sexy stuff, you have sexy people, maybe or maybe not drugs, but the potential for that, or the dynamics of that, and then thugs. So sexiness and thugs go together. So wherever, so all I meant to say is that I think that that danger, the author Mickey Royal, he points out the difference between the dark world and the criminal world. It's not necessarily the same. So where people have like lifestyles, right? Like, say lifestyles of we'll see things like adult entertainment that's presented to us like on some of these platforms, but we actually don't know the real lifestyles and like where people get opportunities for those kind of lifestyles. But then those lifestyles themselves, we don't know a lot about that as people that are not privy to that. But that is not the same thing as crime, but it's not entirely different than crime, and it can just in how severe and serious and how real it can be. So you have like so you say you have things like, you have gigolos, you have porn stars, you have players, Macs, you might have now when you say so far I haven't said anything illegal there. I said gigolo, porn star, Macs, players. According to Mickey Royal, everyone in life is a player of some kind, because life is a game and you're playing the game. So player might be like that's a weaker word than it sounds like. It sounds cool to say player, but it actually is a little bit getting off into the weeds in a gray area when you say player like that. When you say Mac, according to Mickey Royal, he's from Southern California, where a lot of our lingo comes from. And a lot of people, they don't know the actual lifestyle and the nuances of the lingo that we reach for. And it confounds communication sometimes when you actually don't know what you're referring to. But according to Mickey Royal from Southern California, is that when you say Mac, that's like a man that makes women fall in love with that man for the sake of him. Like he's like bigger than life, larger than life. Women are impressed with his personality, the idea of him. But that's not illegal right there. But so that can be like the dark world like that. So those lifestyles, gigolo, Mac, porn star, that can be like you have a lot going on with that. You might be in certain areas, but that's not necessarily illegal. Then you have the criminal underworld in itself. So you have the dark world and then the underworld. No, I'm sorry. The underworld and the criminal world. The underworld is like that stuff. Porn star, gigolo, Mac, where it's the type of lifestyles that it's not a layman lifestyle. It's something not of a civilian, that the kind of the opportunities, the sensations, the experiences, it's beyond that and different than that of a civilian. I'm speaking as just someone that read a damn book, so I might not know what I'm talking about. But it's a dark world, nether world. A lot of things that could be dark, great for being dark, or dark for being dark, but still dark. And then you have the criminal world that's not entirely different, and it's not apart from that, but it's not the same as that or all of that. So whenever you're doing things that are cool, sexy, you're on some level you're engaging with and or in proximity to at least the dark world, the underworld, if not the criminal world. But that you're already in the underworld, you're not far away from the criminal world like that. And anything that, so an example of that is like, so you're a Mac now, right? So you're dealing with different women now, right? but you just met some woman, and you actually do have certain graces and skills around socializing with women and getting on with women and getting to know women. But that woman that you met, she's attractive like that to you, but she's also attractive to this person that actually is affiliated in a syndicate, or like just a lifestyle, a pattern of actual criminal activity. So by you being in the dark world, the netherworld of maybe engaging of dealing with women without some of the courting and the structure and the oversight of a more I don't know if you can be tame in something like dealing with people, but because dealing with people anyhow is always it can always be very serious. I think Mickey Royal pointed that out in his book too, is that it doesn't matter what type of lifestyle someone is or isn't, just dealing with people, it can amount to anything, good or bad. But you're in this lifestyle, the dark world, you're maybe courting women, engaging women, having sex with women, having flings, this and that, but not necessarily doing right by them, or maybe intending to do right by them, but they're not doing right by you. But it's still something of the netherworld. But now you just actually got close enough to a woman to be involved in the life of someone with a criminal background, because when women are not one person, no one's an individual. So if you're dealing with women, you're actually dealing with men, because any woman you deal with has men in her life, whether they're related to her or not. She has other people in her life, and they're also her, and they're also you for dealing with her. So you're it's not a very far skip and a jump to be having a lifestyle that could be called the netherworld, the dark world, things that most people don't know a lot about, or maybe that wouldn't be clear to a person that's not privy. But then you jump right off into the criminal world. It's not that far of a jump. So the danger is connected to the lifestyles of sexual activity, but also it limits who would be close enough to sexual activity, because you stay the hell away from danger. A lot of people, you simply stay away from danger. So you wouldn't be at the lake. You didn't know you could meet beautiful people at the lake that are looking to do that are looking to do things that might be that might you might have had a cool experience being somewhere that you might have thought would have been dangerous, but that you got to be there, that danger, it limits who would be there. So it's kind of like it's like danger might be like a bouncer of cool experiences. And so I think that's always been with us, and there's always been a need for danger, because there's actually a need for limiting supply and demand. There's a need for limiting human sexual activity. That is, there's a need for danger, for the boogeyman, for trends also, the horrible outcomes of trends, some trends, the detriment of trends. There's a need for that, and it's part of the dynamic of a trend, the appeal of a trend, and the function of a trend. But such is danger also. But with the modern technology, like with the digital space, is that a lot of danger, it can be accounted. You can't control for danger with human beings in any iteration of human being society to the present day. You can't control, isolate, mitigate danger. You'll have the same danger, but also you'll have the same need for danger. So even as you have things like you have more surveillance apparatus, probably more sophisticated law enforcement techniques, you also have a need for danger. So I think that some of the way that people do different things to do different things that would make a statement in terms of violence or crime, the part of making a statement is a deeper human instinct, is that we still need a boogeyman to have the right danger, to have the right supply and demand. That's like an instinct that we have, like a sense that we have, like, oh damn, we need some more danger, we need more horrible stuff to happen, when there might not be the same reason for it. Like now you have like a lot of street activity now, but a lot of it is probably like similar to or replicated from or following suit of older iterations of the streets, like say the 80s or 90s. Now the streets has always been the streets, and there's really no time. So the streets is always just the streets in human society, and it's nothing really changed about it. Just the names and the faces change, but the streets don't change. But you could say that some of the dynamics of street life, like when people are emulating or jumping off into the street, it's that it's not necessarily the same dynamics as the streets had been back in the day, because we're digital now, but people still kind of put on the same, they replicate the older style of the streets, where all I'm trying to say is that we may not actually have a need for all the ratchet things that happen, that a clear-cut need for it. But the need of it is that you need danger and a boogeyman to make the society work. So you need people afraid to come outside for other people to be outside and enjoy being outside. You need people to be outside and enjoy being outside, and then for bad stuff to happen, for police to get paid. So there's a deeper cause and effect baseball about why you would need danger. But danger, all I'm saying is that there's not that much difference between any two people, but people do experience life very differently, and it amounts to supply and demand. So part of how you create and guarantee supply and demand as sexual activity goes, and also as like socializing and life opportunities go, is with danger and trends. So that's all I'm saying with this one, to go to my previous video. But I don't mean this with judgment to anyone, any lifestyle, because this world is crazy as hell, and we all get in somewhere, and where we fit in, where we work with what we've got, what we were shown when we were growing up, and then we learn lessons and we choose, and hopefully we change. But we don't have to change, but we do have to choose. We have to experience and we have to choose, and it's our opportunity to choose better if we choose. And that's what I wish for myself and anyone watching this, is just to choose better. But we're not guaranteed nothing, we're not promised nothing, and if we're fortunate, we get to have some cool experiences, dark and light. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but just something to say that you actually lived while you're here. I think that's worthwhile. But I just wanted to point out some things in the name and spirit of truth. Peace.